Junior Caminero is working his way back. Let's talk prospects up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Saturday, July 13th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Just a heads up, we're recording this a few days in advance, so if Kobe Mayo gets called up, you know that we probably had something to do with it. 5 on the verge. Kobe Mayo of the Orioles, Max Meyer of the Marlins, Jacob Wilson of the A's, Junior Caminero of the Rays, and Nick Yorke of the Red Sox. Scott, Caminero went on a rehab assignment. He's working his way back from a quad injury. And Nick Yorke, a new addition to this list.
Yeah. They are the new additions here. Junior Caminero, of course, was a mainstay in this list earlier in the year. He was probably the most stashable prospect when things started. But then he didn't do all that well at AAA, and the Rays had a bunch of injured players and didn't call him up. And then he suffered the injury, and it's kind of been out of sight, out of mind. Well, things have gone poorly for the Rays during the time he's been out. A bunch of their hitters who made a good impression early on have come back down to earth. Richie Palacios, Jose Caballero, Johnny DeLuca. They've shown that they probably don't deserve everyday at-bats anymore. And so that creates a new opportunity for Junior Caminero, who, in spite of his middling production to AAA, still hits the ball as hard as any minor leaguer without major strikeout issues, and is just the sort of hitting prospect that you expect a superstar outcome from. So once he gets his feet back under him, probably about the time the trade deadline comes, maybe the Rays ship out some other players who might serve as roadblocks for Junior Caminero. I think we do see a lot of him over the last 2 months, and it might be worth stashing him again. I will mention also that Max Meyer, last week I pointed out that he upped his slider usage, got it back closer to where it was in those 3 major league starts where he looked so good, which seemed to signal a transition from development mode back into competitive mode. And his latest start, also along those lines. He went 6 innings, his longest start since being sent to AAA. And his previous start was his second longest start since being sent to AAA. So it seems like they're stretching him out again, ready to invite him back into the rotation. And I think that's going to happen for Max Meyer, perhaps at the start of the second half.
The 5 prospects on the periphery. These are some prospects doing something of note as of late. And we have Justin Crawford, an outfielder with the Phillies, Ignacio Alvarez, a shortstop with the Braves, Austin Peterson, a starting pitcher with the Guardians, Demetrio Crisantes, a second baseman with the D-backs, and Cole Carrig, who plays a bunch of different positions with the Rockies. Which names would you like to touch on here, Scotty?
Well, if I could backtrack just a little bit, because I did want to talk about Nick Yorke, who got moved into the 5 on the verge, because he is a name that you may remember from 2021, had a breakout season in A-ball, got a lot of hype, moved into pretty much every top 100 list, and then kind of disappeared after that, came back down to earth. But this year, Nick Yorke, second baseman for the Red Sox, has come back to life. Particularly since moving up to AAA, he has hit well over 300 with power and speed and exit velocities. I have exit velocity data for Nick Yorke now that he's at AAA, and it's most impressive. Average exit velocity over 92 miles per hour. Max exit velocity a little less impressive, but still decent, 109 miles per hour. This is a guy who genuinely hits the ball hard, and I think could play especially well. The production could play especially well at Fenway Park. The Red Sox have had trouble filling second base all season. It may be time for Nick Yorke to get a look here. Now touching on a few of these other options, Justin Crawford, outfielder for the Phillies, is the son of Carl Crawford and looks like he could have a similar skill set. It's a difficult needle to thread because you have to be an elite base stealer and an elite source of batting average with this kind of profile. But so far it's played that way for Justin Crawford in the minors, and he's put the ball in the air a little bit more, gotten to a little more power this year. Still mostly a ground ball guy. You probably want him to be a ground ball guy with that kind of speed. But if he can, like his dad, be a 10 to 15 homer guy, that makes the path easier for Justin Crawford. And finally, I'll touch on Ignacio Alvarez, better known as Nacho Alvarez for the Braves. He is a hit over power guy for sure. He spent most of this year at AA, had no homers there, but since moving to AAA, suddenly he has a handful of home runs. And it seems like if you look at the tool set, it looks a lot like Vaughn Grissom to me, where high batting averages, decent power, good speed, but like the raw power and speed characteristics aren't actually that good. But it's played up for Nacho Alvarez enough that you could see him entering into the Braves' plans in the near future. It maybe an even more fitting comparison than Vaughn Grissom, going back a little further in Braves history, is like a Martin Prado. So I don't think Nacho Alvarez has stud potential, but I think he could be useful. I think he could be solid enough if he produces high batting averages to matter in fantasy.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again next week. Bye-bye.